Hello, I'm going to try this evening and make a little video about the Charcot Circles. I bought this module a couple of months ago on eBay. I looked on the Studio Electronics website and it sounded really good, sounded really interesting. And then when I got hold of it, I discovered it was quite hard to make it do the things it was meant to do. There are a couple of reasons for that. One is that Studio Electronics planned to produce a breakout box which would allow you to allow the Charcot Circles to produce multiple CVs and gates at the same time, which sounded fabulous. It sounded a really slightly complicated but very interesting and potentially useful thing for the module to do. That doesn't seem to be happening. Studio Electronics don't seem to have any intention of producing that box, which is a shame. I need to get in touch with them and email them and see what's actually going on about that, and perhaps at some future date I'll make a video and talk about that. But at the moment, despite me feeling a bit fed up about it, having not spoken to Studio Electronics, it would be unfair, I think, to give them a hard time about it. What I will give them a hard time about, though, right from the offset, is the appalling documentation with this module. There's a quick start guide which is far from ideal, and there isn't a full-on module, and there are things in here which I still don't know. I still can't work out how to do, but a fair bit of it I've managed to work out. One or two things people on Muff Wigglers have explained how to do or mentioned how to do, things that I really couldn't work out how to sort out in the first place. Anyway, the first thing I was going to show was the clocking of it, which was a bit of a mystery to start with to me until somebody at Muff Wigglers explained how to do it, because the instructions don't mention how to do it. We'll run through quickly. There's a shift button here. The shift button, basically you press to change between the different functions, and there's a play button, and the play button really does just turn play on and off. So we turn play on and nothing happens because I have set this to sync. So let me take that off and I'll explain that later. The play button allows that little sequence to play, and if I press that, it turns it off. I should just say I'm running this I'm running the control voltage from this into a Thomas Henry VCO, and then the output from that is going into a really simple Vactrol VCA effectively. So there's nothing complicated going on. The gate really is driving the output and the CV is driving the output, so you're sort of hearing what's really happening in here. That plays it through, and then if we press shift and use the encoder in the middle, we can slow down. Or speed up. The encoder sometimes seems a little bit less than interested in working, but it gets there. It gets there. It's just sometimes you feel you're not quite getting what you want from it, and I don't enjoy that control of tempo very much. So the alternative you have is to press shift and global, and then click on sync. Sync then takes away all of that, and all that clocks the module is the clock in here. So I've just got a little square wave clock going into there, and play now does nothing. Oh, actually it does. If you press play twice, it takes you to the start of the sequence again, but otherwise play does nothing. If we stop that for now, let's stop it at a place where there isn't a note playing. If we go into, let me try and remember how to do this, load, we've got banks of notes, banks of sequences, so there are 8 banks, I think, of 16 sequences. We're in the first bank at the moment. I've no idea what that's doing on. And then we can save and load into various slots within that bank. What we've just been listening to has been in that one. So we're going to go onto that one. And I'm going to try and work out what that is doing there, which I really don't know at the moment. I don't like the look of that. It does sometimes do odd things. And it seems to be doing odd things at the moment, because it can. Shift to notes, shift to global. Shift to notes again, and let's see what happens when we put our clock back in. Well, it's going around, so we hope that's working. These touchpads are a little bit awkward. I quite often have to wet my fingers, or dampen my fingers to make them work. I work outside, my fingers do get quite dry, so perhaps that's just me, and for other people it would be less of an issue, I don't know. In notes mode, you can simply turn notes on or off. And so we're just turning on different notes in the sequence. And then within that, we can turn notes up and down with the encoder. Which is slow and awkward when it's playing. But you have the option to turn the clock off and to use key mode. Key mode is fabulous. Until you found key mode, this whole thing doesn't really work. Once you found key mode, it becomes some use, which is useful. In key mode, any note, you should be able to press it. Okay. Key mode's not doing what I want key mode to do. What's going on here? I can only guess this might be something to do with it not liking the VCAs. So all I can do is pop this somewhere more helpful. Excuse me, this is the it's not going quite as planned moment in the video, and as I'm a lazy bugger, I don't plan to edit this video, so I'm just going to see if I can get it to quietly work. This is really not working how it ought to. It doesn't like having play pressed, okay. Okay, so let's go back to what we were doing before then and see if that means that's alright. It is, okay. I had play pressed, it doesn't like that. It has quirks. There we spent a few minutes dealing with a quirk. What's meant to happen, you press shift, you press key, and then each of these notes and each of those notes you can then tune. So we've tuned a few of those. The encoder seems to be awkward sometimes, but we'll see what happens. Again, that was in key mode and it doesn't quite play properly in key mode. You do have to go back into notes mode to make it happy to play. It has quirks. save that then, where we had it in this position, I think. So then we have to press Shift and save, and then where you want to save it, and press the encoder, and that should mean it's saved there. Shall we take our lives in our hands and check? I've just pressed Shift and load, and then we try that one. That's the one we had previously. Shift and load is still on, so we should be able to press that one. Glory be, it's worked. As you can tell, I don't have enormous faith in it always doing what I want it to. So key mode, yeah, key mode is fabulous. Key mode does let you and let's make sure to let us play. Let's have a go. Get that back in. Let's raise that up a bit. Let's raise the tone a bit, as it were. I should say in Charcot Circles' defence that if that isn't sounding entirely in tune, which I don't think it is, my VCO here is a homemade VCO, which I've never quite managed to tune the 1 volt per octave right on, so there's a little bit of outness there, which is, as far as I'm aware, my issue, nothing to do with the Charcot Circles. And then once we are in notes mode, as we are, we can turn those notes on and off as we choose to. And once we've turned notes off, we have the option of changing the length of each note. In the instructions, this talks about being able to change the length up to 16th notes. What it means is change the length up to 16 notes, I believe. So we go Shift and length, and then whichever note we want to lengthen, we click on it and extend the length on here. Which has extended the length across these notes, so you can have a long held note. You should be able to adjust that, but I found it quite difficult. Now we've got less, we've got 4 rather than 6, which I don't think is quite what I've asked for there, but there you go. Okay, we'll try saving it again. And see if when we reload it, it's still doing the same thing. So again, not quite what I expect it to do. Within the global settings here, as I said, we've got forward and reverse, so we can, or we can have backwards and forwards, or there's a random notes within that sequence. I must admit I've not played with this much, but it's yeah, perfectly usable. So that's the basics of the Charcot Circle. There are other things to play with in there. One of them is the... I'm trying to find it now. Oh, I'll tell you what we should look at actually is the transpose. So if we click on transpose, that's the note, the bass note at the moment. So that's transposed us up. The transpose on occasion sounds really good. There is a scale. It doesn't seem to do much that's very much use, so I don't play with it. There is also a velocity which you can set. I don't think there's a whole load of... I think you've only got 16 steps on the velocity. It's something I need to play with, but it doesn't... It is useful, but it is also limited, so something to play with. What I've got nowhere with is legato and glide. I have made no sense of the instructions at all so far, but I'll have a look at that at some point. With this 8, 4, 2 and 1, with 1 what you can do is basically set it up to do 128 note sequence, which is a series of 16 note sequences, and then you can actually cut you can actually choose between those sequences within that 128 notes and kind of play that in real time if it wants to do as it's meant to be doing. I think that's it for now. I'm going to leave it at that. I guess we could try that same pattern without the sync on, so that we can turn that down a bit. Let's go back to notes. I think sometimes it likes to be in notes before it will let this tempo control work. And let's change the that note. And again, once you've done something to it, you've got to remember that you do need to save it. Press that and click on the encoder. Otherwise, you turn it off. It doesn't hold what you've done unless you actually specifically ask it to save it, tell it to save it. The retrigging I don't find useful. You can just, on any note within it, you can ask it to retrig that note a number of times. So here we can click on retrig and then choose this note and go up 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And you'll get 4, in fact you'll get 4 retrigs, so we get 5 times so that we get 6 retrigs, which might be a more sensible number. So I would prefer something that divided the note rather than repeated it. A kind of flam type effect would be much more fun. I can't see me ever using that effect really, so it's another of the things that I don't really pay a great deal of attention to because it doesn't seem a great deal of use to me. So we can transpose again. I think it drops down if you go any further. So that's it for now. I'll leave it at that. I think I've bored you and myself enough, and hopefully I'll come back in another week or two and do a bit more and explain a bit more about the things I haven't managed to get around to explaining today. Cheers.